seen attacks carried on UK soil, but in terms of actually targeting British officials, I think that's obviously a pretty dramatic step, and I think it would be taken with a pinch of salt, these latest Medvedev comments.
Now, the former Russian president and deputy chairman of President Putin's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, has said British officials are a legitimate military target for Russian attacks. Medvedev also said that British military support for Ukraine constituted an undeclared war against Russia, describing the UK as an eternal enemy of Moscow. George Grylls is the Times' defence correspondent who has the story. Afternoon, George.
Afternoon, Patrick.
This is quite astonishing language from the former Russian president.
Yeah, and he's responding to these remarks from James Cleverly yesterday, who was asked about these drone attacks that happened in Moscow yesterday. These astonishing drones that were shot down in sort of some of the wealthiest suburbs of Moscow, not far from actually where Putin's own sort of residence, where he spends most of his time, is. It must be said that the Russians tend to enjoy using pretty apocalyptic language, to raise the temperature and put the pressure back on the UK. So we've seen Putin, for example, vowing a response when it emerged that the UK was sending these special type of tank shells to Ukraine. We've also seen last year, I remember there was warnings of a radioactive tsunami sort of engulfing the UK. So we shouldn't get too carried away, but certainly it's another flare up in tensions.
Do you think it reflects the view of President Putin, or is it sort of freelancing, as you say, along the lines of what we'd heard before?
I would put it more in the latter camp, certainly. I wouldn't say Medvedev is anymore, the crucial figure that he once was. I mean, he certainly is prominent, still in Moscow, but I'm not sure he's exactly it's different when it comes from his mouth than when it comes from Putin's own mouth. But it's sanctioned, put it that way.
And how worried would British ministers be about attacks on British officials in the wake of this?
Well, I don't think you can ever be complacent. I mean, it's not so long ago that we saw the Salisbury poisonings, we saw the Litvinenko poisonings. We've seen attacks carried on UK soil, but in terms of actually targeting British officials, I think that's obviously a pretty dramatic step. And I think it would be taken with a pinch of salt, these latest Medvedev comments.
You also have a story in today's paper about the Russian opposition leader who suggested that Russia is on the brink of a 1917-style revolution. Who are they and what have they said?
Yeah, this is Ilya Ponomarev, who is he now lives in Ukraine, a former Russian deputy in the Duma. He is sort of closely associated with these partisan movements, which we've seen sort of actually cross the border and launch these raids into Russia to sort of demonstrate the weaknesses of Russian defense along the border. And they're doing this basically to sort of try and raise the consciousness of the Russian population to their own sort of ability to perhaps affect politics in their country. Because I think, for most ordinary Russians, the feeling is overwhelmingly of apathy when it comes to politics. They don't want to get involved.